Okay, we are recording.
All right, welcome everybody. This is module 4, week 6, talking about salaries and the salary sheets that school districts use to predict costs and know employee costs. The spreadsheet analysis, just knowing and understanding how the cells interact based on the changes, the coding aspects that go with it, the impacts of employee benefits and how those change and vary district to district, whether if your district pays for it all or if you pay into it. And then just the implementation into the line budget. And so for me, as a teacher, I served on the negotiations committee. So this is something that, one, I think every school administrator should serve like in a teacher role on that. I think that's a big help. But in principals, if you're not involved, ask your superintendent if you can be involved in the negotiation process. But this spreadsheet is similar to one that we use. I like how it has like the FICA percent, the retirement at 9.8%, just those things in there, the workman's comp number, so you know what you're multiplying by there. And really, I think just the biggest thing is knowing that this green number up here, when you put that in, that changes every single cell. I mean, for us, our extra duty assignment is based off of our base salary, how much retirement, how much gets pulled out for FICA. Everything is based off of that. This cell over here is if you would change the insurance deductible, just what that cost is to the district in there. We have a couple staff on extended contracts. I'm sure some of you guys do as well, where this is a completely different cell. But I like how ours breaks it down with just their salary, just their extra duty. It builds onto it. And then you get their total cost over here to the district when you go in there. And this is what we use at negotiations time. I know that was a big thing on here. We can anticipate the best we can, but we don't know for sure of what everything's going to be. One thing that I put in here, just a big part was like the negotiated agreement. And this timeline, I still ask for this from our teacher union group, which they get from the state. You don't have to follow this. This is just if you are up a creek without a paddle and you got to get the law involved with everything. But I do think this is a good transparency to make sure that your teacher union group has and a general timeline when it comes to that. For us, we use a different spreadsheet for certified, classified, and administration, and we do raises in that order. We always try to get certified done, then see where we're at, assess, see where we're at in the school year, then go attack classified, and then at the very end, attack administration salaries. Community coaches are people who are not on our staff. They do not get paid throughout the year. They get paid a one-time fee at the last month of the season. So that is a big difference there, where coaches who are on salary get it throughout the year. We also, our benefits are different for classified. We pay our classified less, but they get insurance. They get in single insurance. So all paras, anybody who's hourly gets that insurance on there. They can't get family, just single. So that's different. PTO is different. We're fortunate we have 12 PTO days. Our insurance is all paid out. And just helping to predict for next year, we use a letter of intent, just communication with our teachers and our union. Our union's really good about putting out if people are going to move up in advance. Administration having that, and it's easier at a smaller district where you pretty much know who's taking classes or who isn't from that. And we've talked about it numerous times, but just knowing your array. I mean, you have to stay within a certain percentage of your array. You have to stay in there. We're just knowing that there's pretty much always a bottom and a top line of where you're going to fall in on teacher raises and everything. And just using that array is going to go from there and helping plan and do everything from there.
For Elm Creek, we use the same spreadsheets. We have different spreadsheets for classified, administration, and for our teaching staff. We do not give insurance to paras, but like our office people get it, and then the head kitchen lady gets it. And so really, the spreadsheets help us keep track of where people are at on the pay scale. It's good to have the staff one different because you have the steps in there as well for education. We use surveys, for people to, if they plan on taking ed hours the next year. And then, in those spreadsheets, we keep years of service. And then, we use that stuff too. Also, when we're figuring it out, we predict the non-certified needs. And we try to do that. I talked to Tom and he said he pads it 10% every year. And he said it was really good. He did that this year because we have a new FFA and a shop teacher. We didn't have one, and we hired one, each of those. And he thought that was in last year's budget because they were both still in school, but they're under contract. And it was not. And so that 10% really helped them. But we really try to, for each side of the building, he said he tries to make sure he pads it so that if we have 1.5 of a one-on-one come in, just because we're close to, it can happen to any of us, but we're close to Kearney. And so it seems like we get a lot of high needs in and out. And so just predicting that stuff. And then something he said that was interesting is the State School Board Association has software in the Spark stuff that will help estimate payroll, FICA, and all that stuff. If you get to a school that doesn't have the spreadsheets and until you get a spreadsheet built, but when you manipulate those numbers, ours is the same as yours, Adam. You just punch in that new base salary and it kind of changes the whole thing. That formula is set up to do that. So, and it's kind of interesting to see the difference between, people that have been there, the cost of a teacher that have been there a long time and has ED hours versus someone that has been a long time and has been has maxed out versus a brand new teacher with none of that stuff. So just to see the difference in the cost of the district. So
that was one thing I like how you said the FFA and shop teacher. So like this year we didn't have a Spanish teacher, but when we were negotiating salary and planning, we acted as if we had a teacher in there, and we ended up hiring one. But that was a big thing where we probably could have got a little bit more of a raise for teachers, but that would have been accounting for one less staff member. And I thought it was just proactive of putting that in there. We also, I like how you said the non-certified needs. At the end of March, going into April, we have a district-wide SPED meeting, and that's where we ensure that like our paras and everything is going to stay the same, or if we need to do anything different with kids transitioning over to the new building. We're going to have to do that this year, where we're going to have a girl graduate, but then she's going to extend services and she's going to need a job coach. So that's something that's going to factor in when we do our non-certified payroll coming up here at the end of March, beginning of April.
So I downloaded Dr. C's,
in about 11 miles, keep right onto I-135 north.
You're all good. And
sorry.
no, you're good. I need a class in Excel. So I always said I'd be a principal, but never a superintendent because of the numbers. Well, several years later, I'm still, I'm in need of an Excel class. I did play with it a little bit, but I need a little more expertise. Because I do think that spreadsheet that Dr. C gave us does a lot of neat things, but for it to fit kind of my system, I kind of have to rework a lot of that. And so, it's something maybe to look at for our district. Right now, when I talk to my mentors, they do have their own spreadsheets, and they also do that. They can use Spark. Dr. Isom was like, I kind of have my own spreadsheets that I like to use because then I could get in there and kind of play. She said, when you're budgeting, you're always starting with salaries. It's your biggest expense. It's one of your most important things. And so you've got to make sure that's covered. So you've got your spreadsheet, and then you can kind of play with that. Where you're expecting people to move, what your insurance is going to be. So put in those knowns and then play with the expected movements. As far as how to plan for next year, we're a really small staff. We've been pretty open with staff. In fact, we said, okay, If you're thinking about moving on and you would like to share that information or kind of know what your plans are, let us know. Our staff has been, we've already had one teacher come and say, listen, you've got me for this year. I'm iffy, the next and for sure the third. And so we just kind of have those lines of communication open. We don't do a letter of intent, but we are talking about that. We also do, as far as what we did this year, because I have a new superintendent and he hasn't been a superintendent for 7 years. He took some time off. So he's into a new system and he's 7 years out, which basically he says, I'm all new because things have changed so much. So we did teacher salaries, we negotiated those first. We've done administrative salary, and then we will dive into the classified staff. Last year, when I was going to meetings, the board kept tabling that until like June, but we're hoping to have that done a whole lot sooner so he can have some of that budget planning done. So, Adam, you had mentioned coaches. If they are not in the district, they can get paid over that season, not just one lump sum, but they can get paid during that season. Anyway, it just reaffirms I have a lot to learn, and that's okay. So
The insurance thing always baffles me, like that timetable, they want you to start negotiations by November 1st. Well, like the insurance changes didn't come out till the last week of October, and that's when they always come out. So, and this year it was 2.9%, and it's like next year is only going to be more. So it's just hard sometimes like they want you to start so soon, but it's almost, you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. And if insurance goes up 10% and they want to keep that same deductible, it's harder to get that much more money on your base salary. Like the cost of insurance going up is so key to what happens to the salary.
yeah, because I think most teachers would probably, we have 1,050 deductible and we don't pay, like if you take that. But I think most teachers would probably say, give me that insurance, whatever that is, just because that's so important these days. We don't, the only people that get insurance is certified staff, but Mr. Egger is going to take a look at that and see if, because we are behind on certified staff, we're going to make some pretty big salary jumps for them so that when we have that mandated minimum wage that we're not making huge jumps, but also hoping that maybe that the insurance will offset some of that as well, or add to our package, I guess. So
We do at Elm Creek, we have cash in lieu. So if your spouse or you has insurance, you get $8,000 a year, and that saves us a lot of money in our budget. Doing that.
We do that too. It's amazing how much it saves.
Yeah. Because they said when they didn't do it before, that both, like if the wife had insurance and husband had it, they were just both taking the full insurance, and so there's quite a cost savings by going to that. So,
and that can be even if your spouse works outside the school, or does it have to be both in the school?
outside the school.
Yep, it's a huge savings for us.
Yep.
I know Howells Dodge doesn't even offer health insurance. They just give you like $18,000 on top of your salary to go buy insurance.
I'm glad we don't have that.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a pain.
Yeah.
there is something to be said though about your insurance not necessarily being tied to your job, because I think you get some people that they're staying, they may not really enjoy it anymore, but they're staying for that insurance.
Yeah.
And it's
We
kind
have a couple that, want to retire and have voiced that and say, but they have to stay for either their insurance or for their husband's insurance.
Oh.
And so, that gets tricky. So, yeah. Well, I was trying to scribble down notes as you guys were talking. I'm like, you guys had so many good points. Just like the other folks have said, Loop City has a spreadsheet that's extremely similar to the other ones. Shows payroll changes over time. Obviously, we take into account years of service, coursework beyond the bachelor's degree, extra duty, all of that stuff. And when you were talking about the money that you can make by hopping over, when we were going through it, we had a sweet guy that just retired last year. Had spent 11 years in the district and was stuck at that BA, never once moved over. And so just for fun, we figured up, and it was almost $250,000 that he missed out on for not moving over. And so it's like, it really does pay to get all that work in. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Just like, oh, I thought someone was chiming in. Just like we talked about with insurance, Loop City does pay all insurance. So I am on a single one, but another administrator who makes just a little bit less than me is on the family insurance. And so her total that Loop City is paying for her to be employed there is more than mine because she does have that insurance. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And like you guys talked about, I recently came from Kearney Public and they just have that set rate. And in fact, we missed out on numerous candidates that did not come to Kearney and went to a smaller district because of the insurance thing. So that's definitely a benefit that people take into account. I did jot down, I was like, we do pay single insurance for paras, but our office staff, our secretaries do get family insurance. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. Letter of intent, we did send that out very early January, not too long after we got back from break, just to help with our hiring needs. Of course, it's very preliminary, non-binding, all that stuff. We do have one of our 5th grade teachers marked no, she would not be returning, but we do not have a letter of resignation for her. So we're kind of stuck in that limbo of she tells us she's leaving, but we can't really act on it until we get that official letter. So we have a couple other openings that we've interviewed kind of, you know, underneath the table maybe for her position, but can't offer anything until we officially have that. So kind of the good and the bad with that. I did include a little bit about our salary schedule. We're a 4x5. So a 4% increase for each additional year of service and 5% increase for each 9 additional graduate hours. We do have the caveat that you have to have your master's in order to move over more. And then you can only move a maximum of 9% each year. So even if you take a whole bunch of graduate classes, you can only pop over one, which I think a lot of districts have.
Dang, that's different than ours. Ours, you can move
really?
over. You can go a maximum of 2 columns or a year of experience, or obviously like sometimes if you take one class, you can move over one and down a couple. I think you can move like 3 steps any direction at one time.
Oh, wow.
So it does pay that, but I like how it's a 4x5. Ours is 2. I think there's something to be said for incentivizing a little bit more of continuing education and doing something to better yourself, to better the district. I think those are huge.
Yeah. Do you guys have any caveats for what the masters have to be in? Like, does it have to be in CNI or something related? I know some districts will not pay you for having an administrative, a master's in admin unless you're using it. No district I've worked in, but I know that sometime if you're not using what it's for, then they won't pay you for it.
Our only thing is that the graduate classes have to be towards a master's program. It can't just be general master's classes without written approval. Like we've had some people who have like gotten their master's and then they want to take a couple more classes, but it's not towards a degree. It's like reading intervention specialist classes that they've done. And Burwell's so unique. Like we actually have a BA plus 36 and a master's column, but the master's column has an extra year of experience. And then we go all the way up to like a master's plus 27. So I think like the cap out at ours is like almost 64,000 of what you can make.
I did link our negotiated agreement there. It is scanned in from the superintendent, so it's not super pretty the way that he did it. But a couple of things that I thought were important for budgeting. We do have 10 days of personal leave, and that's not not categorized by, sick day, bereavement day, any of that. Just 10 days inclusive. And then you can bank any leftover days up to 35, I believe it is. But the next year you have to use all of your personal before you tap into that bank for medical leave. So it's super confusing. And it also leaves some people kind of in limbo if they go on maternity leave, that you really quickly run out of days. So the district does pay short-term disability. And so pregnancy is considered a short-term disability. And so that's how a lot of our folks are able to get maternity leave. So that is paid by the district. And then, like I mentioned, any insurance that the person may need is also paid by the district. So those are kind of the three big bullet points that I thought in our negotiated agreement would really affect any sort of budgeting thing.
Does anybody keep track of what I think maybe we talked about this earlier, but like sub pay from year to year?
Yeah, it's in our line item budget that we run every single month. And so like we had our art teacher got called to duty for a flight school and military, and so we have a long-term, so we didn't plan on that, and so we're a little over on that. But in your line item budget, you'll have that in there, and you budget for it. I mean, every year. So
I'll be curious to see. I feel like the switch from the old principal to me, I'm more like, he never hired subs for the paras, but we have some special ed students, and I'm like, no, we have to hire somebody in for them. And so I'm curious about that, how much more money I'm spending.
Yeah.
And we distinguish between in-house subs and out of house, all of that. Just
Yeah.
we try to get away from it because we pay them when they take away their plan period, but you take away plan period too often, that's a culture killer. So we really work on that. And we had a big one on our negotiated agreement that's going to change our budgeting. Is we used to bank up sick days to 45 or 40, whatever it is. And then once it was full, you just lost them, use them or lose them. Well, now the teachers got the board to agree that once your sick bank is full, they'll pay you half a sub pay for every day that you didn't use. So, that's going to be a ton, but a few $100s for every person once they bake them up or whatever could be potentially there. And again, a few $1,000s in a multi-million-dollar budget's not a lot, but another thing to budget for.
And I should have
they
mentioned
might
that
say,
we pay $100 for each day that if they bank up to 35, then each day over that, they get $100 for the year. So that could be potential for, it could be $1,000 a person.
But it might make some of them think about not using them.
Well, that was our board's point is, well, if you have 8 days to use, are you going to take them and go out and use them and have us pay for a sub, or would you stay in the classroom? And and I'm like, I will do everything I can to keep teachers in the classroom. And even if it's $60 at the end of the year for every day, like, because I would get it. I mean, I get it, use them or lose them. So, if they're debating of, should I take a 3-day weekend or can I stay and get paid for it? We'll do whatever it takes.
Yep.
Especially when you're talking about sub pay, that's like we're paying like $160 a day now.
And Brandon, do you guys have a different rate for long term?
Yeah, it's we actually pay them the base salary divided by like however many days they're working.
The per day.
So, yeah, they actually get the base salary for that. So
Do you have any stipulations?
That's what we end up doing too, is when we have a long-term sub, we just take from the base salary or whatever we're paying for our step that everybody comes into. Cause I think we're up to 175 for subs.
yeah.
Yeah, we do. You don't qualify as a long-term sub until you hit like 8 consecutive days. And then once you go past 8 consecutive days in the same classroom, then you get a new rate. But it's prorated. So like if you do go 9, then you go back and all those other days become what it was and something like that. So.
Okay, so Norfolk is the last one. And kind of like Rachel, I messed around with the spreadsheet. It wasn't really too bad after I started to kind of figure things out. The only thing is, is that I probably would not want to be a superintendent of a large school starting out. Because I think the one that Dr. C sent all of us, or put up on the module, it was, I think his whole entire staff is less than the staff at the high school. And so like it is a lot. And so with those spreadsheets, instead of putting it all in the same one, we end up using multiple spreadsheets for school to school. That way you can kind of see the difference. But it shows the years of teaching and the steps that they are. We have a whole bunch of, so on Dr. C's, I think he didn't have very many people that were going over as much. At the senior high in general, there's always somebody that's taking some kind of class. And so there's a lot of like moving over. So not only are they step 11, they're step 11 part D. And so then we have a lot of extra duty and pay increases. We actually offered, I don't even know how many, but we offered a few teachers to do 7 periods instead of doing just the 6. And so they also get a bigger stipend every month. That's just kind of different than what the other categories are. And then Norfolk doesn't pay for all of our insurance. Last year they did negotiate that I think they pay 65% now. And because we ended up freezing our cash in lieu, which of course the people that took the cash in lieu were not super happy about it. But it definitely helped a lot of teachers across the board. We've lost teachers. For example, a couple years ago, one of the teachers, he ended up, I think he had 5 kids. And so they only paid single insurance. And so he had to pay so much in that he was barely making anything. And so he ended up finding a different job that would pay all of his insurance. And so now it's definitely better. I'm not quite sure what they do with paras because a lot of our paras only work 30 hours. But I do think the few that do work full-time get insurance. So letter of intent, it has not gone out yet. Usually they do that at the beginning of March. Negotiations actually finished early this year, so the staff budget is set for the next year. It's already up and going on the school website. And so our vertical is 4.5% at base, 5% on steps 9 and up to an MA through PhD. And we actually have steps all the way through EdS and PhD because we've had teachers and administration that have gotten their doctorate. And then our horizontal is 4.5 of base. And new employees, because we have such a large teacher shortage at Norfolk Public, we actually have new employees that are new teachers or below step 3 will actually start at step 3. So brand new, there were several brand new teachers this year, and they all started at step 3.
I know when I was hired at Grand Island, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe, that I started at step 2, and that was one of their hiring incentives. And I didn't even realize that until I got my first paycheck. I'm like, hey, this is kind of nice. But then when I went to Kearney, they wouldn't honor that extra step. So, so it's a nice while you're there.
Does anyone have a salary schedule for admins in their district besides Norfolk?
Grand Island did when I was there, but Kearney does not, and Loop City does not.
I think Norfolk does, but they don't put all the negotiated stuff like they do for employees and staff.
in that.
And I don't think that they've actually negotiated it yet, because first they try to get done with the teacher stuff first. So I think that negotiation goes all the way up until, I think, June is what they were kind of telling me.
We have to sign our contracts. They put in our board policy. Everyone has to sign their contracts by March 15th
Yeah, that's what
in our district.
Yep.
All teachers and everybody have to by March 15th?
Yep, everybody. Are they putting it once you sign it? Like a lot of districts, I know that if they can find a replacement, if you want to go somewhere, they let you do that, and they do not at Elm Creek. Like once you signed, you're in.
Wow.
So
I know some
I think
districts
they-
that don't even do contracts. They just, like, once April 15th comes, you just roll over and you just know you're rolling over unless you're told otherwise. I'm pretty sure Kearney still does not do contracts. I think Kearney, you sign your initial contract and then that April 15th deadline, everybody just rolls over.
You're right.
Yeah.
First year there, I was nervous because I didn't get my contract.
Yes, yeah. I think it's good practice to just sign a contract. And then every August, we always do like a salary sheet where it shows down the breakdown of extra duty, all of that. And then they have to sign that at the beginning of the year just to confirm that this is where everybody thinks that you should be on the salary schedule and you have all the extra duty on there and everything like that.
It would alleviate a lot of problems if there was a miscommunication about where somebody thought they were and there was an error paying back.
I mean, and it always works that way because you have till September 1st of that school year to turn in anything, or, it was, oh, I should have another year of experience for coaching. I mean, all those spreadsheets, I mean, it's just a good checks and balance. And every year, there's 4 sets of eyes. There's always one little silly thing that, is not on.
Right.
And all of that. So, and I think it's, again, just transparency that we've talked about since the very beginning with everything. And this whole thing with all these spreadsheets and the negotiated agreement, I mean, 85% of our budget is human capital. So this impacts our budget more than anything else. And that's where everything is at. And there's the most room for error and all that. So just the more eyes that you have on it and the more data you can collect and track, the better.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Okay. Anything else before I stop recording?
I think we're good.
All right.